Hi y'all, Raidwald here. In the wake of the terrible tragedy in Oregon, the UCC shooting, we've already seen a lot of people jumping on and trying to highly politicize this issue, as we do with almost every mass murder. People on the left generally using it as an excuse to create stricter gun control laws. People on the right jumping on board as quickly as they can to prevent this very thing. I'm going to take a different take on this. Every murder out there has means, motive, and opportunity. We know we can't reasonably get rid of the opportunities. That would mean we'd basically have to live in a zoo where everybody had their own cage, and nobody's willing to go to that extreme. So that leaves motive and means. And it tends to be fairly difficult to know before someone murders somebody else what their motive is going to be, and it can be anything from jealousy to wrath to pleasure for sociopaths. So removing the motive is similarly impossible. So the left tends to look at the means. And if you really look at this, the means of a murder, the weapon used, can be anything from a hammer to a knife to hands, to guns and assault rifles, to bombs, poisons, toxins, what have you. Now, it is, of course, easier to narrow some of these things down when you look specifically at mass murders. The weapon of choice tends to be handguns and assault rifles in the U.S. However, many many mass murders have also been committed with knives. There's, of course, the Osaka school massacre that occurred back in 2001. There's been mass murders with knives in China in 2014, 2012, and 2010, just to name a few instances. So it's not impossible for these mass murders to be committed by other means. If you're able to squeeze out an assault rifle, then perhaps someone will go to knives. So let's look again at preventing the opportunity for mass murders. On October 9th of last year, that is 2014, the Crime Prevention Research Center released a report showing that 92% of mass public shootings occurring between January 2009 and July 2014 all took place in gun-free zones. So, you know what? The people on the right have a point here, that if you want to reduce mass murders, then reduce the number of gun-free zones. So maybe attacking guns and gun ownership as a means of reducing the means to do a mass murder is misguided, and in fact increasing gun control will increase mass murders. Maybe not gun mass murders, mass shootings. We could see an increase in the rise of knife mass murders, as they have in the East. So let's look now at motive. Honestly, a lot of these occur with some sort of manifesto, some sort of political point, some sort of reason why the people want their cause or their suicide note or whatever to be viewed by as many people as possible. And that there's one surefire way to do that. You make your death as notable as possible. And what better way to do that than to rack up a huge body count along with you? And in the case of the UCC shootings, why not throw in a little religious controversy in there as well? Asking people if they are Christian, which, there are varied reports, and it may come out in the future. This is still fairly early on. It may come out that that's not the case, but the overwhelming evidence at this point seems to indicate that he was asking people what their religion was. If they were Christian, he would shoot them in the head. If they were not, he would shoot them in the leg. Or if they did not answer, he would shoot them in the leg as well. So, if he throws in a little religious controversy and racks up a large body count, he becomes famous. And in this particular case, he's actually left, he's commented on several mass shootings in the U.S., but in one particular case, he said, and this is a quote, "On an interesting note, I have noticed that so many people like him are all alone and unknown, yet when they spill a little blood, the whole world knows who they are. A man who was known by no one is now known by everyone. His face splashed across every screen, his name across the lips of every person on the planet, all in the course of one day. Seems the more people you kill, the more you're in the limelight." So the motive, I think, in especially in this case, but likely in the vast majority of mass murders, and let's face it, terrorist attacks for that matter, is to rack up a very high body count very quickly in order to become famous, in order to be known across the world, to have your cause or your suicide note known across the world. So, that brings me to the title of this video. If we're going to target somebody's constitutional rights, their natural rights, as a means of cutting down on mass murder, then why stop at reducing the number of guns in the country? Why stop at making it impossible or difficult to own a gun? Why not actually go straight through to the motive? After all, where there's a will, there's a way. So, I'd say, let's get rid of the right to free press. Let's make it illegal to report on any of these shootings, on the names of the shooters, on the fact that it happened, on anything to do with these mass murders. Of course, we really can't stop there. In the day and age of social media, we can't just target the official media. So let's just end free speech. You know, because if nobody can talk about it on social media, then we can, again, prevent their getting famous. So let's end freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and hopefully cut down on the motivation to cause these mass murders. Of course, if we're going that far already, then, you know, you really can't prevent people from talking at assemblies. You know, when they get together, people tend to talk about things, and something like this is sure to come up, so we might as well get rid of the right of the people to peaceably assemble. And if we're going that far, then, you know, seeking redress of grievances to the government, for example, having your child shot and killed at a school, a government school, by the way, would lead to protests, and public protests, besides being a peaceable assembly, is also a way to get out the news about something. So let's go ahead and get rid of that right as well. And you know what? Come to think of it, churches are really hard to control. If you're allowing people to assemble in a church to discuss ideas, then something like this, well, it might come up. So let's just completely get rid of the whole First Amendment, and that will probably solve these mass murders going into the future. That's about all I had to say on that. I'll leave it to you guys to chew on what I've said. Leave all your comments below, like the video if you liked it, and we'll see you guys later.